Welcome to Parent Equip, equipping parents to be the primary disciplers of their children. You know, one of the most important things that we need to realize as parents is that we're in a battle. We are in a war. And we need to know what kind of war we are fighting. We need to know what the goal is in our fighting. We need to know what we're fighting for, and we need to know what we are fighting against. Without knowing this, we can be, as Paul puts it, almost swinging in the air. We almost as if we really don't know what we're trying to hit, and we wouldn't even know if we hit it, and we just feel like we're just swinging. We need to know what battle we are fighting and what it means to have victory. And so what is the battle that we're fighting as Christians, and even more specifically as parents, and what are we trying to defeat, and what are we trying to have victory over? Well, I think 2 Corinthians chapter 10 makes this clear. There's a couple of things that inform us about this war, this battle that we're fighting, and I think it applies to our parenting. Verse 3 of chapter 10 in 2 Corinthians, Paul says, "For though we walk in the flesh," meaning we are here on earth, "we are not waging war according to the flesh," meaning we're not fighting a physical war, a fleshly war. We are fighting a spiritual war, a spiritual battle. Verse 4 then says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh." So the weapons that we use in this spiritual battle cannot be fleshly weapons. They can't be practical, pragmatic, worldly, physical weapons. That won't do anything in a spiritual war. So he goes on to say, "But these weapons have divine power." We must have weapons that have divine power, not fleshly power, to destroy strongholds. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. We're fighting a spiritual war. We must have not fleshly weapons, but spiritual weapons that have divine power to destroy strongholds. And these strongholds literally mean fortresses, castles, even prisons. So what are these fortresses? What are these castles? What are these prisons that we're trying to fight against? Well, he tells us in verse 5. "We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God." Meaning this, we are fighting against ideas, against lies, against misunderstandings, against the lack of knowledge of the truth, of having no truth and understanding and knowledge about God, about the truth of God, about the truth of salvation, about the truth of how we live in obedience to God and how we live in relation to God and what we were created for. There's a whole lot of lies and ideas that come from our flesh and that come from the world that our children will believe innately, and they will believe from what they hear around them. And we are seeking to destroy those lies, those ideas. He ends verse 5 by saying, "And take every thought captive to obey Christ." We want to have the mind of Christ. We want to have the mind of God. We want to have a mind and thoughts and ideas that are in line with Christ's mind and thought and ideas. So, what is the essence of what this means? It means that in our parenting, we are fighting to give our children the truth. We are fighting to destroy lies and opinions and ideas that come from their flesh and that come from the world. And we are desiring to give them an understanding and knowledge of the truth, which will transform their lives. So putting this all together, we're not fighting a fleshly war. We're fighting a spiritual war. And with the fact that we are fighting a spiritual war, we can't use fleshly weapons. We need to use spiritual weapons. And these weapons must have divine power, whatever the weapon may be. It must have divine power. And it's to destroy these fortresses, the fortresses of ideas, of opinions, of lies. And these lies are raised up against the knowledge of God. They're not true. And so we must perform this action to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And therefore that leads us to the fact that we have one weapon, as Ephesians 6 tells us, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. The only weapon against evil and error is the truth. We give the truth. That's our only weapon. And that's what the goal is and the weapon is of our warfare, to destroy lies, to destroy opinions, to destroy a lack of understanding and knowledge by speaking the truth. So, parents, my encouragement to you is know what you're fighting against and know what the only weapon is. And therefore, continue over and over and over again to just speak plainly the truth of God, to read it, to explain it, and to apply it in your children's lives.